All right, everybody. It is October 6th, 2020. And if you've stumbled upon this channel or this meeting online, you have found the Athens-Clarke County Mayor and Commission, who are gathered together today for our monthly voting meeting, which will be followed by an executive session to discuss real estate. First order of business tonight is the roll call. So I'd like to ask Assistant Clerk Ms. Howard to provide a roll call for us, please.
Davenport.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Link.
Here.
Wright.
Present.
Denson.
Here.
Edwards.
Present.
Harrod.
Present.
Thornton.
Present.
Hamby.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate it. All right. Next order of business is approval of the minutes of meetings from Tuesday, September 1st, Tuesday, September 8th, Tuesday, September 15th, and Thursday, September 17th, 2020. I would entertain a motion for approval of those minutes.
So moved. Second.
All right. Have a motion from Commissioner Davenport, second from Commissioner Denson. Any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications this evening?
No, sir, we do not.
All right. Thank you. All right. I want to let everybody know that for the bulk of our items tonight, we've accepted online input. Your online input entered through the online portal will be entered into the record. We thank you very much for that. The next couple of months, we're going to be innovating a little bit and looking for some new public input opportunities. But for the duration up to this point this year, we've been accepting that input online. Again, it has been entered into the record. By state law, we do need to have public hearings that include live public input on our planning and zoning matters. Believe we have two substantive items and a text amendment tonight. And so I will go ahead and turn it over to public information. Do we have any public input on the first item, which is the 7.46 acres at 145 Dekle Drive?
Yes. Yes. Come on. Okay.
Evening.
Hey, good evening. How are y'all?
Good, good. Just if you could provide your name, Mr. Dekle, and go ahead and begin your comments.
Okay. I'm Shane Dekle. I live at 200 Lakewood Drive here in Athens. And I've emailed and had conversations with several of you, and won't go into a whole lot of detail other than just say, we're part of this community. My family's part of this community. We feel like the use that we're proposing presents a much lower density of, will lower traffic, will lower development of the land, and is much more responsible and much more sustainable use than what is currently proposed. My parents, my sister, my wife, and my three children live in the neighborhood. So this is not something that we are doing to as out-of-towners hoping to make $1 off of Athens. This is something that we want to be a part of and want the community to embrace, and we feel that they will. So I'm here. I'm available for any questions, but I ask for your support, and I think it would be a great asset to Athens. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dekle. Is there anyone else here to speak to 145 Dekle Drive?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Josh Coons. I live at 205 Clover Street, and our firm has been helping Shane with this effort. Keep this short. The PD amendment is really a request to create an urban farm and event venue in a location that's been previously approved in the Lakewood subdivision for single-family lots, townhome lots, and condominium units. There are examples of this type of development in our region, specifically the Love is Love Farm in Decatur and the Wrecking Barn Farm in Snellville are two similar developments that function primarily as food production farms, but also serve as destination event venues. And these are destinations for not only residents of those towns, but also visitors and tourists alike. And we definitely think Athens would benefit from something similar. There are some concerns about a farm and an event venue in this area, which we are certainly aware of and we totally understand. Many of you may be familiar with the Williams Farm here in town. This was a PD that we helped the Land Trust with over 5 years ago that functions in a manner similar to the proposed Lakewood Farm. There were similar concerns then, but the farm has actually been successfully incorporated into the neighborhood. And many of the farming guidelines incorporated into the Lakewood Farm PD are modeled after the example set forth by the Williams Farm. From a development standpoint, the proposed PD amendment will substantially decrease the development impacts related to traffic and stormwater runoff, and potentially even be less noisy on a daily basis when you factor in the 124 residential units that were previously approved to the proposed farm. As you may have read in the report, there are some waivers associated with this request. Some, like the request for agricultural use in the CN zone, are fairly straightforward. Others are related to the aesthetic of the farm-based development that we're trying to maintain. And others are trying to figure out what to call short-term stay rentals in the absence of that legislation, which technically, by way of interpretation, zoning calls a motel. I'm very happy to answer any questions you have about any of those as you deliberate this. But we're really excited about the potential of a project like this in Athens. You know, in 2000, when we adopted the land use plan, I specifically was somebody who's in favor of infill and still am. But I think we need to recognize these opportunities that we have to save some of the in-town green space when it can represent a unique possibility like this one does. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Coons. Is there anyone else here to speak to 145 Dekle Drive? All right, seeing none, we'll begin discussion amongst the commission. This is in Commissioner Parker's district. Commissioner Parker, would you like to kick off the conversation?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And a quick aside, I would like to say hello to Katie Johnson's peer leadership class, which I believe are tuned into our meeting this evening. So thanks for joining us. Exciting to have you all involved in the local government. But to 145 Dekle Drive, I initially received a small flurry of some concerned residents in the area, particularly around the issues of agriculture, but I think a lot of those concerns have been satisfied. I haven't really heard much from them in the lead up to this meeting. Most of the input that we've received from the surrounding neighbors is positive. I think this is the kind of development that we need to try to encourage more as a local government. You know, the Dekles have been longtime stewards of this area. It's Dekle Drive. I mean, come on now. So I'm excited that they're turning this into something that will, I think, be a benefit to the folks that live around here. You know, I'm looking forward to checking it out myself, as well as seeing the increased tourism that it brings to the area, while also taking care not to bring too much traffic into the area, to not overdevelop the land. I think it strikes a really good balance. And so with that being said, I motion that we approve.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Parker. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Just at this point, I'll ask the attorney to read the ordinance, since zonings require an ordinance reading. You're muted, Attorney Drake.
Muted.
So sorry. Thank you. An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to amending a plan development for a parcel of land comprising approximately 7.46 acres, located at 145 Dekle Drive in the CNPD Commercial Neighborhood Plan Development District, and for other purposes.
Thank you, Judd. Other input on this item?
Kelly, I have a quick question.
Yeah, Andy.
So I think it's a great project. I intend to support it, but I do have a quick question. So I'm looking at the agricultural part, and it says that they're going to keep 100 domestic fowl, or up to 100 domestic fowl, which I'm assuming is chickens. My question is, given that there are other residential people around there, will that just be hens, or will that also include roosters?
I don't know if that applicant has any specific plans.
I haven't gotten that far. We've had a rooster in the past, and I'll tell you, I'm not a big fan of them. They're pretty aggressive and kind of loud, so preferably hens. But the rooster we did have was an accident. He was supposed to be a hen. So, the idea is to have a productive, functioning farm. So, roosters do not provide much benefit other than protection for the hens. So it will be predominantly hens, hopefully. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Well, the reason I asked the question is, as I recall from our backyard chicken ordinance, roosters are banned in residential neighborhoods. And so I would like to, I'm assuming this is a residential neighborhood. I'm hoping that would also be the case here for the protection of the other people that live close by, because there's nothing more irritating than being woken up at 5 o'clock in the morning by a rooster.
It's my interpretation that would have to be an amendment to the PD that calls that out specifically, Commissioner. I don't know if Commissioner Parker, as the kind of primary applicant or the motioner, and then Commissioner Link would be accepting to that friendly amendment.
Is that amendment doable to the applicant?
Yes.
All right. That sounds good to me, too. Good catch, chicken dude.
I'm fine with that.
If Commissioner Link's good with that, too, I'm good with that as well.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right. Those accidents can happen. All right. Any other input on this item? All right. We have a motion from Commissioner Parker, a second from Commissioner Link. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. Go forth and do well. Thank you, Mr. Dekle. Thank you, Mr. Coons. All right. Next up is a request of Beall and Company regarding 100 Trinity Pond Road. Is there anyone to speak to this item in the chamber? Evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. My name is Ken Beall, Beall and Company, and we have prepared the zoning amendment documents that you'll be acting on this evening on the subject property. Coincidentally, we also, back when this project was originally approved in 2002, we prepared the original planned development zoning to be an overlay zoning for this particular piece of property. And then we also prepared the infrastructure construction plans, landscape development plans, and so forth. So what we're here this evening to do is really to make a minor amendment, almost just a text amendment to some of the wording that was originally on the plan. When the project was originally approved, there were 62 proposed single-family lots with homes to be constructed on those. There were 3 existing structures that were going to be converted into guest houses, and then there was 1 primary home place that was going to be converted into the clubhouse. Well, the project was approved in 2002. We did the construction plans in 2003. The subdivision was the infrastructure of the construction subdivision, and the final plat was recorded in 2004, and then they started houses at that point in time. And then a few years later was the beginning of the downturn in the economy, and so home construction stopped, and the project became distressed and bank-owned. And then the present owner of the property purchased the property in 2012. And has been building a few additional houses over the last few years. And there has been a demand. They also remodeled those cottages, those guest houses. And the people who reside in those guest houses actually love living there. And they would like to be able to reside longer than they are able to as guest houses. So we were advised that if we would make a minor amendment to go back and include those units, the 3 guest houses and the clubhouse, in the density calculation, which would increase the density from 0.5 units per acre to 0.27 units per acre, then it would bring it into compliance and people could reside in those cottages and in the hold home place for longer periods of time. So that's the entirety of the amendment. There's really we're not asking for additional homes to be built. They're already existing houses. We're proposing no additional infrastructure. The subdivision was already completely installed originally. So it's really just a minor amendment to address fixing a wording to bring it into compliance with the current code requirements. So that's all I have, but I'm happy to take any questions from anyone at this point in time. Thank you much.
Thank you, Mr. Beall. Is there anyone else in the chamber who would like to speak to this item? All right, seeing none. Patrick, this is in District 1. Any input you'd like to provide?
Yes, Mr. Beall, he hit the nail on the head. It just, this was approved back in 2002. There's only just a minor amendment with the 3 homes, the cottages, where the residents would like to reside. Everything else looks good. It's a beautiful plan. It's going to be a beautiful neighborhood, and I motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Davenport, a second from Commissioner Parker. Allow Attorney Drake to read the ordinance at this point.
An ordinance to amend the code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to amending a planned development for a parcel of land comprising approximately 125.23 acres located at 100 Trinity Road et al. In the ARAPD Agricultural Residential Airport Overlay Planned Development District and for other purposes.
Thanks, Judd. Any other input on this item? Andy?
Thanks. I think it's a good project. I have a very technical question, though. So I'm looking at the PD, and it says in there about trash pickup will be by private hauler, which makes sense. Given that this is a PD, if that part of the county were ever to have city trash pickup, would the PD have to be amended, or is it just assumed that because it can no longer be serviced by a private hauler, that part of the PD is invalid? I guess that's a question for the attorney.
Yeah, we often see that element in some of our ordinances that conflicting prior ordinances are repealed. Judd, would that be the case with these zoning items? Because I know we've gotten many of these where there's specification that a private hauler is going to provide trash service.
That would be my understanding. I would want to confer, and I will do that tomorrow morning with Brad to see what his understanding would be, and I'll email the commissioner.
Thanks, Judd.
Yep.
Brad, any further thoughts about that?
No, I would just add that, I mean, to me, a change like that at a maximum, we do have the administrative action tool that we can use, which I think is perfectly situated for that. If we have a discrepancy that really doesn't change the overall intent of the PD, I can send that to you all for a 15-day send around, much simpler, much quicker, and it still addresses the need to modify the report. That's what I would do with it at this point.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Judd.
Thanks. I just want to make sure all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. That's all.
Yes.
Any other questions or input on this one? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Hearing none. Motion carries. All right. We do have one text amendment on the agenda tonight regarding grocery stores and colleges in the CN zone. Is there anyone in the chamber to speak to this item? It's looking mighty lonely down there. I'm going to say that this has not drawn a crowd. All right. Melissa, this specific one involved a project in your district. Obviously, it applies countywide, but would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can just say that the current code does not allow grocery stores over, I believe it's 10,000 square feet. Is that correct? In the CN? Need to look on the, which is very, very small. Or it doesn't allow grocery stores in colleges, college use. And this came about through a college, the request for Piedmont College to occupy the big brand new building that popped up in Normaltown, which was initially intended to be a medical building. As everyone probably knows, Clarke County School District bought Piedmont College's campus on Prince Avenue. College itself is moving into the other single building, and which I think will be a boon to Normaltown. Piedmont College has some medical programs and they're accessible to the hospital. And I think that's an appropriate use for the building, but the current code did not allow colleges to occupy a space of more than 10,000 square feet. So what we did for the grocery store, the planning department suggested that the code be amended so that colleges and grocery stores can occupy the same amount of square footage. So did I get that right, Brad? I'm sorry, it's been a couple weeks since we talked about it.
Real close. The only thing that I would correct you on is that currently in CN, you can go up to 30 with a grocery, but not more. And we felt like there was some need for a little bit more latitude on the groceries as well. So we wanted to make those both consistent when we recommended up to 36.
Yeah. The initial proposal was to, not put any limits on colleges. And I don't think that's necessarily appropriate. But I'm comfortable with 36, and I certainly feel like that the existing 10,000 was just there's not really much you can do with 10,000 square feet. If you're going to run a school.
Thanks, Melissa. Any other questions or thoughts about this item?
Hey, Mayor, I have just a statement, if I could.
Yeah, Commissioner.
This Mike. I just want to disclose I do some work for Piedmont College, but since this is countywide, I don't anticipate it being a problem with me voting on it. Do y'all?
I certainly wouldn't perceive that way.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I guess when this was when the location that precipitated this was the Allen's beer and hamburger joint, a whole different kind of education was going on there.
Yeah.
So I've got a motion from Commissioner Link. Is that correct? Did you put a motion on the floor, Commissioner?
We accept this. Yeah, sorry.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Wright.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Link. I have a second from Commissioner Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, can I read the ordinance real quick?
Yeah, but please do, Attorney Drake.
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend the code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to grocery stores and colleges and for other purposes.
Thank you, Attorney Drake. All right, is anyone opposed to this? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, go forth and do well. All right, we are moving forward to the next component of our meeting this evening, which is our consent agenda, which are items number 4 through 10. Would any commissioner like to remove one of these for discussion tonight? All right, consent agenda items are approved with a single vote. Do I hear a motion for approval of items 4 through 10?
So moved.
So moved.
Second. I've got, I'm going to give it to Commissioner Denson with a second from Commissioner Parker. Is there any ordinance among these tonight, Judd?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Nope. Okay, so no ordinances. So we've got a motion from Commissioner Denson, second from Commissioner Parker. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Consent agenda is approved. All right. We are moving forward to old business. Just 3 items of old business out there collecting dust. All right. Number 11 is the 2020 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant application. Any input on this item? Commissioner Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I had this removed off of the consent agenda just to give us a moment to reflect on the number of grants like this that we get from year to year. I think previous grant and the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant thread that we had received previously was for narcotics drug enforcement or narcotics enforcement, law enforcement, and having studied, texts like The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander and coming to understand the history of grants like this in incentivizing not just narcotics law enforcement, but particularly targeting marginalized communities and the way that the war on drugs has ultimately failed to keep our communities safer. I just want to encourage all of us to think about the ways that we can invest in other sorts of community building and life affirming social services and seek out grants that can be used to fund those sorts of things as a way of actually combating this issue in our community more effectively than we do through grants such as this that we often receive. When those come up again, inevitably, as they will. Though this one is for, I believe, translation services and to fund some part-time employees to support the work of criminal justice reform, including the Citizens Advisory Board, mental health services, and general community outreach programming. Just a moment for us to think about in future, like, what do we want our community look like? What sorts of things we want to invest in? What kind of grants do we want to get after so that we can fund social services at a more adequate level in Athens? So, just wanted to add those remarks to kind of give context to the work we have ahead with regard to criminal justice reform.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Link.
Speaking to Commissioner Parker's concerns, I just want to let everyone know that a couple weeks ago at a quorum of the audit committee unanimously voted to direct the Office of Operational Analysis to include in their next work plan an audit of the police department, specifically pertaining to funding and budgeting and analyzing this kind of grant funding and other outside sources of funding and how it's distributed within our department, the structure of the department, so we can begin to have those conversations and give this kind of information to some of the community task forces that are looking at how we do policing in this community. So, we are going to be having some real analytical discussions about this kind of funding availability and where it goes and how we can possibly use it more creatively in our community.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any further input?
Mr. Mayor,
Thornton.
I definitely think that, and I did listen to Commissioner Parker's comments at our last meeting, and I do agree. I do think that how these dollars are planned to be spent moves us in that direction and makes us more conscious of what we can do from a community base. My only concern is I was looking at the pay for these part-time workers, and I'm not sure that we do consider helping people build careers, or are we creating another cycle of poverty? I'm going to support this, but for the pay that I saw, even though when you say $25 an hour, well, if you're only working 2 hours, you're not really lifting people up. So yes, $25 an hour sounds good, but if the hours are so low, I'd rather see you put the money where people are really getting uplifted and not creating another pot of poverty. I would like to see where we take any of these workers that come in entry-level positions, whether it's this or the community core. I would like to see us start developing step ladders of moving people up in the local government. I think that this grant begins to take us in the right direction on community policing, instead of police just policing communities. But I do think we need to start looking at these salaries and the hours that people work, because like I said, 25. When you say you work 25, you make $25 an hour. People are going, wow. But if you're only working a few hours, I don't think that we are doing things that are sustainable. But saying all of that, I do think this is a good move.
Thank you, Commissioner. Manager Williams, I don't know if there's any context you want to provide to the anticipated employees who will be part of this grant.
No, other than, the actual number of hours a week projected is 16 hours a week. This would be for 15 weeks. And this is in response to a lot of the new initiatives that I think the commission has been implementing here. And I just want to note, the past grant applications, Commissioner Parker mentioned one. A lot of them have been very equipment centric, and we're moving towards people and making this more meaningful and reaching out to the community. So I think Commissioner Thornton's comments are well taken, and we'll continue to look at ways to improve that. I appreciate your consideration of the item.
Thank you, Manager Williams. Any other input? All right. I need Attorney Drake to read an ordinance since it's a budget item.
An ordinance to amend the FY 2021 annual operating and capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide grant funding if awarded from the Federal Justice Assistance Grant Program for enhanced community outreach initiatives and improved communications, and for other purposes.
Thanks, Judd. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
All right, I've got we'll give the motion to Commissioner Wright, second to Commissioner Davenport. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. We're going to move on to item number 13. This is the voluntary remediation release, acceptance of deed and lease property agreement with the Classic Center for the former Athens Manufactured Gas Plant property. We had some conversation about this at our agenda setting meeting. We got some input from our sustainability office and central services about this. I'd be happy either to entertain any discussion or a motion.
Mayor, I'll go ahead. Yeah, I definitely appreciate staff bringing some more clarity and a little bit more history of this item, and kind of showing that that the county feels very comfortable and confident that there's not going to be any kind of negative environmental or legal consequences for us going ahead and taking this step. So I go ahead and make a motion that we accept this.
I'll second it. Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Denson and a second from Commissioner Link. All right, any other input? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, moving on to the last item of old business, which is our LRC report examining opportunities for local civil rights legislation. This is something of an interim report. The Legislative Review Committee is going to continue to look more comprehensively at ordinance updates, but it was recognized that forwarding previously approved position right now at this moment rather than waiting till 2021 would be advantageous. So Commissioner Wright, I don't know if you want to provide any further input on this.
No, I mean, I guess a little bit. You did a great summary of that. Thank you very much, Mayor Girtz. As we move forward, we're hoping to address, with the help of the Office of Inclusion, the best possible way for responding and reporting system so that the current discrimination ordinances that we have can be effectively reported. A system for the logistics for that, as well as acts and things that are occurring to our county employees, and well as community-wide. So having more help from that department starts with this point, we felt like, when it came through. But we'll be talking about this local civil rights legislation at next Thursday's LRC.
Thanks, Commissioner.
So I make a motion that we accept the report.
I'll second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright and a second from Commissioner Link. Is there any further input on this item?
I'm just wondering, are we accepting the report, or are we making making a motion for additional help in the inclusion and diversity?
So in this case, the commission back in June previously allocated this position, and so this would just move this forward immediately rather than waiting until next year.
Okay, then I am, so this is where I'm gonna give my comments at. I'm not going to support this even though I was on the committee. From everyone that I've talked to about what that served on that committee, this is the work that we have seen anywhere close to what the committee was looking for.
Sorry, Commissioner, you're breaking up.
This year has been the most horrific time as far as race relations, police relations, community relations, even internal relations.
Ovita, I think we lost you.
Ovita, you may want to try turning your video off. Sometimes it pulls a lot of bandwidth.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. So I don't know where I left off at because I don't want to repeat it, but I'm not going to support this right now. I think that we have other departments that have been waiting for assistance or hires. And I do not believe that with all the conflict that we have had since the COVID, internally and externally, we have not had any direction or any guidance from our inclusion and diversity department. Now, I don't know what you folk think inclusion and diversity is, but it is not just Athens Eats. It is not just community core. If you were telling me we were funding another social worker, then I would go along with this. But Office of Diversion and Inclusion should be just that. And I haven't seen anything that comes close to addressing the diversity and inclusion problems that we have seen in this community. And this is not a personal thing. Maybe we just had a misunderstanding of what the mission and the goals were of this department. But the only thing I can go by is what people in the community that were on that committee were expecting. And it is not what we've gotten. So I'm not going to support this, even though I was on the committee. I really feel as though if we move this forward, we could have also moved our audit report forward. So this to me is very, very, I'm very passionate about it because we're picking and choosing, and I don't think that's right. So no, I'm not going to vote for this. I said it before, I was hoping it came off the agenda, like we took off something else off the agenda. But no, this isn't right.
Commissioner, thanks for your input. Before I ask Manager Williams, thanks, Commissioner. Before I ask Manager Williams to speak, I will relate that I had the fortune last year of sitting at a conference in South Carolina with the sort of counterpart in Des Moines, Iowa. And one of the things that he emphasized to me was how much building and groundwork is necessary in a new diversity and inclusion office. And I mean, he noted to me that, you should anticipate sort of a 2-year ramp in just as the groundwork is laid, as the office is built. And really as the work plan develops, folks on this body probably remember that we have a sort of 10-point work plan, and they're 10 very large items. And so I just want to make that note. And of course, here in 2020, there has been a phenomenon of everybody having to pivot to do different work than that they normally would have done. And under the sort of tripart format of the government in the pandemic, the Inclusion and Diversity Office has been part of the broader communications team. Manager Williams, I don't know if you want to provide some additional context for how the department's been functioning this year and how this position would anticipate to be integrated into the team.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. And I think the committee was presented with, a lot of the work that has been done thus far. And I think that's what compelled the recommendation, and if I'm not mistaken. And certainly glad to share that information with all of you and the public as well. You did create this office last year, and we were fortunate to hire our officer, Crystal Coburn. This is and Commissioner Thornton is absolutely right. This has been just such an incredible year, and has really propelled a lot of things that needed to be to the forefront. We're a community of 130,000 folks. This is such a huge issue to tackle, and we rest that on the shoulders of one person, and that's very difficult. We've asked her to do two things. One is help on the internal side with our own departments and help us be better people and to be a better organization. That in and of itself is a daunting task. And then in addition to that, we're asking her to tackle this position of one, this office of one at this point, with beginning to make change in the community. And I will tell you that I admire the work that she has done. I have in putting some thought to what this is. You see all types of approaches to the work. There is no right or wrong approach. It's meeting people where they are, and really, I think if you're going to affect real change, you have to change people's hearts and minds. And there's certainly different ways to do that. I think that that this has been a thoughtful approach, and I think that I think the committee recommended the person because they saw the need in it, and I agree with that. There needs to be some more support there to help this work get into our organization and get into the community. So I'm glad to share what's been done to date. I think the mayor's right. It's not. She has been. The Inclusion Office has been a integral part on a number of things, whether it was legal issues or employee issues or COVID response. We've been able to add that extra level of expertise and attention here internally, and I think it's been good. It's going to take some time, and certainly we would love your input on what you think would be important in the work as we try to move that forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Manager.
Kelly, if I can just clarify my motion, I did say accept the report, and Commissioner Thornton made me realize that the motion really should be to accept the recommendation that has come forward, because this is not a report in the way that the content that you guys are talking about that was presented to us. So it is a recommendation that I want the motion to accept.
Thanks for that clarification. I'm going to move around to folks who I've not heard from on this round. Commissioner Danson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll first say that I definitely share a lot of Commissioner Thornton's concerns. I have been concerned and heard the concerns from community members about they see as a lack of movement in this realm, and definitely. Of course, people are always going to want us to move forward than we can, but I think speaking to your talking about the work plan we have here with the 10 items, I guess maybe something to assist that and to let me know where this is at and the community know where this is at. Maybe to have some kind of timeline put in place, a prioritization list, because I agree. I mean, one of the big hearts behind the push from the community to get this done was the creation of a civil rights committee. And we still have seen nothing happening there. And I understand that a lot of that is because we have, right now, that office is of one person. And I've looked into and heard about and read articles about how offices of inclusion whether that be in the private sector or public sector, are often done just to make everybody feel good and look good, and not much work actually comes out of it. And one of the ways that happens, though, is that those offices are not adequately funded or resourced. So I completely share those concerns. I want to see more happening. I want to see more movement. I want to see that public engagement part, the actual civil rights committees that they're going to bring in and give power to community members. I want to see those things prioritized. And so I'd like to see that work plan kind of laid out and where we're at in it. But I do see the need that we need that for those things to happen. We probably need to have more resources and funding put behind this office. So because of that, while I share those exact concerns, I will support this motion.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Link, I saw you next.
Yeah, I do also have some of the concerns, but I also understand that in order for this office to grow and fulfill the mission that was laid out for it and envisioned by that citizen committee, it's got to be more than one person. And I see that this position is a communication strategist, which can mean a lot of things. But I certainly believe that communication would be a primary motive of an Office of Diversity and Inclusion, reaching out to folks who do have complaints about discrimination issues in the community and providing them with a comfortable sounding board and a trusting individual who can help move those complaints forward. So, I think a communication person is what we need. We also need somebody from that office who will be the liaison between those citizen committees and the local government. I wonder if the manager maybe could give us a rundown of the specific job description for this particular communication strategist, or if that's been laid out yet. I mean, this is just an initial recommendation, so maybe that hasn't been fully laid out. But I guess the title communication strategist was chosen for a reason. Are you on mute, Blaine?
I am. I don't have the job description just in front of me right now. I can share it via email, but the point I think is well made here, and that is you've got to bring a lot of people into the process, and that is going to take the assistance. I think the office has tried to leverage some part-time folks where it can, diversity fellows, but I'll share the job description via email. Crystal has drafted that, and it's going to be ready to go based on the recommendation. But it is to really help be a force multiplier in beginning to engage the community going forward.
Commissioner Harrod.
Thanks, Mayor. So this is a position that we approved in the budget, and the person was originally supposed to start in January, and all this report is suggesting is that we move up the hiring before January of 2021, correct?
That's correct, Commissioner Harrod. The hiring freeze timeline that we did for the budget is affecting this moving forward. So Manager Williams, you could probably address that better. But yeah, it's that delay that we've had, and we just felt that this position should move forward.
So my question is, it's today, it's the 6th of October. Mr. Manager, how long will a hiring cycle be? 30 days, 45 days? So I guess my question is, by the time this person is actually in place, we're really only probably talking about having somebody in place, 2 months ahead of time, 6 weeks ahead of time. What's the hiring cycle?
Sure. No, I think that's a fair assessment. But this is what the committee recommended after hearing from, our diversity, our inclusion officer. And it's true that this position was asked for to begin July 1st, and the commission decided to delay it. And then a committee of commissioners heard a presentation which compelled them to make a recommendation that it be funded earlier. So whatever y'all's pleasure, we'll make it work. But I know she can use the help.
I guess my question is, so if this, if we approve this tonight, how long does it take to put the job ad out, interview people, and get somebody in place? Are we talking about having somebody in place by November 1, November 15th, December 1st? I mean, if it's December 1st, really all we're talking about is bringing this hiring date forward by a month, which doesn't seem to me to be, a particularly big deal.
I think December 1st is fair.
Circling back to Commissioner Thornton.
All right. I have no problem with, let me be real clear. This is not about the director personally at all. It has nothing to do with her. This is about the process. And my point was, and maybe I made it sound personal, but I'm not being personal. What I'm saying is that the people who were on the committee and the people who have been watching on the sidelines has not seen anything that looks like inclusion or diversity. That's my point. If we take as long to hire an assistant as we have done with hiring the grant writers for the prosperity package, it'll be well into 2021. So I would like the 10 points spelled out, the job description in front of us, and I will vote for this because it's going to happen one way or the other. But for me to see it being rushed when those things were not addressed or taken care of, that's where I have a problem. And we have a lot of other areas. So please do not think my comments are personal whatsoever. It has nothing to do with a person. I'm just trying to figure out why we jumped so far ahead of this when we're not clear on the steps. We have not, since I have been on this commission, I have not had one, I do not remember one report coming from that department other than Athens Eats. I have not remembered. Now, if I'm wrong, someone can correct me, but I have not, and that point, and please, and let me say this also. I have talked to the mayor about this, so I'm not springing this on nobody. I have talked to the mayor about my concerns, and he did tell me about a meeting that he had with his colleague. Here we go again. This job was so important to me and the people in this community. This should have been like off the ground and running. Off the ground and running. We have had a very traumatic year, And I think that there is some value in this position, whether what our interpretation of it is. Now, so I don't have no problem with the position. Yes, she probably needs a full staff. But when I go to a meeting and then you're going to infer that the committee agreed on this because I think the term was the diversity fellows, or I never even heard of a diversity fellow until that last meeting. Those are the kind of things this commission, if you expect me to vote for something, I need to know something before the vote. I had never even heard of a diversity fellow until that last meeting. I never even knew we were paying somebody $15 an hour to do something that there has been no report. You can't come to a meeting and drop that kind of information on me and then the next month I'm going to vote for it. That ain't going to happen. So this is not a personal thing, Blaine. Please do not make it sound like I'm making it personal. This is under your watch, and I'm just expressing my concern that the 10 steps we should have been getting regular updates on those 10 components. And then we should have been getting information on the things that have been done related to some of the horrific things that have happened, if anything has been done. And those things have not happened. So I will make the motion to accept the report, but I'm not going to make the motion. So those are two different things. So what are you asking us to vote on, Kelly?
Well, we would be accepting the recommendation of the Legislative Review Committee, which would expedite hiring of this position.
Okay.
And just to be your questions, Commissioner, would it be beneficial to have an overview of the activities of the office, so there's some grounding for everyone in how this fits into the ongoing work plan, particularly those items that we saw in the work session early in 2019? Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Commissioner Hamby.
Sure, and I agree with Commissioner Thornton. If we don't have the job description in front of us and we're voting on paying a salary for somebody, that's kind of problematic. So I'm going to make a motion to hold this item until we get that information and the information Mayor Girtz just mentioned.
I second it.
Any further input? All right. No further input. All right. Clerk Howard, could you do a roll call for me, please?
This is for to hold it, correct?
Correct.
Hamby,
Yes.
Davenport,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Link,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Denson,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Harrod.
Okay, yes.
You
9
didn't say
yes.
Thornton. Thornton.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Thornton.
Yes.
It's
9
hard to
yes.
circle around when you're not in the right order on the screen. So. Okay.
I do have
All
a
right.
question.
Motion to hold. Yeah, Commissioner.
Well, how long will it take for the manager to get a job description together?
I could probably have that in the next day or so.
Any further follow-up? All right, so this is on hold.
Well, the only further follow-up I would have is I guess I'm kind of left wondering why we didn't have one before we were asked to vote on this.
So this position has already been approved by the commission, and this was something that came out of the LRC meeting and talking about it. The position already really exists. I'm glad to get it back out. We talked about it in concept. You approved it in concept. This was brought forward by the committee here of late, and when it looked like we would begin to be able to hire this person sooner rather than later, they started pulling it together to get the details. So, I mean, I can give you the details. I can go back to the concept in my budget book over here and go through that, which was already approved back in June.
I don't have a problem with the concept. I guess the hold up, what we just voted on is we voted to hold it for, I guess, till our 30 days, I'm assuming, because we didn't have a job description, which seemed to be an issue for some members of the commission. I guess I'm just going from concept to actual job description, I see that as going from 20,000 feet to 500 feet. And I'm just kind of wondering, it would be nice to have had a job description before tonight. That's what I'm saying.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, we're going to move on. We have new business in front of us, so I need a motion for suspension of rules.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright and a second from Commissioner Parker for suspension of rules. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we are in the land without rules. All right, item 15 is an LRC report regarding dockless mobility devices. So I'm going to ask the LRC chair, Commissioner Wright, to give us the update here.
Well, let me see if I can do a little better on this one out of LRC. So this would be the motorized vehicles in LRC have been there for many years, starting with golf carts and updating our ordinances and information on those. I think it was fall of 2018 when we had the e-scooters dropped in for that fall semester, which shifted everything towards the shared motorized vehicles and us discussing them on public property and our multi-use paths. And we've done moratoriums on that while we studied it. We've studied it. Attorney Sherry Hines has become an expert in it. And the moratorium will be coming up for renew, and we wanted to go ahead and address it in committee, and the committee recommended that we ban e-scooters, shared e-scooters. Obviously, if somebody has a personal one, that's fine, but and then the shared vehicles and that sort of model, it would be banning that except for e-bikes.
So e-bikes would be allowed.
E-bikes are allowed, but this is specifically the stand-on scooters, shared apparatuses.
The kind of which were piled up at the end of my block for many months.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Would you like to make a motion, Commissioner?
So I make a motion that we accept the committee's recommendation.
So moved.
All right. I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright, second from Commissioner Parker. Attorney Drake, does this involve an ordinance?
No, Mr. Mayor, it does not.
Okay. All right. Any additional input?
I did want to add that we also were able to utilize the Athens in Motions Committee. I think they had just formed, and so their report and insights on it is also included in the agenda packet.
Thank you, Commissioner. I see Commissioner Denson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll be honest. I've been very back and forth on this whole issue from the beginning. I definitely understand and have my concerns about it, but also see the vacuum of transportation options that these scooters filled for a little bit of time in other places. I guess my big concern is that this is the first time that we're able to have this discussion during this cycle. I was a little bit surprised to see it on the agenda at the end of last week when it came up. And to me, it just seems like we've dedicated a lot of time and discussion to this, and there's also been a lot of community discussion and push on this, and it seems like it happened very quickly to have this step kind of land. So I have a little bit of concerns of moving forward on this. I honestly would hate to have us table two items here back to back. But I guess I have a little bit of concern about us moving forward this quickly with such little discussion from the community leading up to it. I'm kind of curious of what my fellow commissioners think on that.
I'm going to go over to Commissioner Davenport.
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Denson. I was a little put off by this, but it's finally. I was kind of happy that LRC has completed it. But at the same time, I would have liked for it to come to the body for all of us to have a discussion about it at least. But I would motion to table it.
Commissioner Link?
I mean, I also have mixed feelings about this. I certainly found the e-scooters to be very convenient, transportation option, especially for someone like me who doesn't typically have a car. But I also noticed the massive pileup that they caused, and there are a lot of inequities. And I really appreciate the report from Athens in Motion, having them take a detailed look at the benefits and the harms. I mean, maybe it is worth having a more in-depth discussion of this. I would be much more open to them if there were some rules laid down about particular areas in which they're allowed to dock, rather than seeing them scattered on sidewalks and in handicap ramps and stuff like in people's front yards. I'd be open to allowing them if we did have some greater rules and regulations around them, and also a means by which the scooter companies contributed to the general funding pot towards our alternative transportation projects.
I don't know if anybody from the committee wants to discuss the context of that discussion within committee, the breadth of potential regulations on this. I don't know, Commissioner Wright, if you want to address that.
Commissioner Thornton's waving. I think we'll let her go first.
All right, we'll get to Commissioner Thornton.
The only thing I want to say is, I think we are setting up a precedence that we may not be able to handle later on. All of our meetings are opened. All of our stuff is posted. Community input is always and has always been available. I think it behooves each of us that are commissioners, and it's hard to keep up with what everybody is doing in committee, but if an issue like this comes up, I think that any chairman of a committee would welcome more discussion. I have to give Attorney Hines a lot of credit for the work that she has done on this, and Assistant County Manager Deborah Lunnan, what she has done with this. This didn't happen in one meeting. This has been a series of meetings. So I guess my point is, I'm all for community input. I want community input as much as I can get it. But I'm struggling with this because we all are, we just have to find time as commissioners when things pop up and not use, when you get to the 11th hour, about community input. Now, if we decide that we would like to have more community input, I would like to know what that would look like, how we missed the boat that we didn't do it before. But if we do this now, later on, after going through committee work and months of work, this is going to pop up again. And I just think we're setting up ourselves on a slippery slope. This is a little bit different than the situation that we just tabled. This is a little bit different, and the reasoning is a little bit different. But I'm not going to argue. This is one I'm not going to fall on the sword about. If the commission, the majority of the commission, wants to do a community input, I will support it. But I would like to know what that's going to look like. And what is that going to look like? And how are we going to manage that in the future when there's something else that pops up? Now, maybe we need to have a policy before we come to the commission. Maybe we need to have a work session on certain things. But I don't think that after all the work that the commission and the attorneys have done, I just don't think that is fair in that respect. But this one, I'm not falling on the sword on. If community input is what you want, but I surely would like to know what that's going to look like before I vote to table it.
I saw Commissioner Parker and then Commissioner Harrod. You're muted.
Really? That never happens. Wow. So, as a member of LRC, I feel like we had really thorough discussion of the topic in meetings that were open to the public. We got really good feedback from AIM, who looked at this topic in a way that I don't think we were even, able to delve into thoroughly ourselves with regards to the potential injuries that could be sustained through use of these devices. I think that we really worked through a lot of potential options with regards to geofencing to keep them off sidewalks, et cetera, and really couldn't figure out a way to make this beneficial to the community with regards to ADA accessibility on sidewalks, with regards to requiring, helmets, with regards to curfews and the way that would strand riders. There's just so many reasons why these things are so difficult to regulate. And, I was one of the folks that, was comfortable moving this out of committee, and I still think this is the right thing for Athens. But if folks would like to publicize the findings, if we go ahead and approve the recommendations tonight, because we're just approving the recommendations, we're not approving a ban. Is that correct?
Attorney Drake, would this require an ordinance update to follow?
I read the agenda item and I don't believe so, but I've already sent Sherry an email to confirm. So the answer is I'm not clear. I don't think it does, or I think there'd be one attached, Mayor. But
I think and we have been working on this for a couple of years, so I do apologize for that whole process. I think that having the feedback from the full mayor and commission that you agree on prohibiting the shareable dockless motility devices, and Sherry has kept up with the actual terminology that's been being used across the country. If we vote to ban them, then the paperwork and the ordinances and things like that would have to be developed to follow that. And then that would be coming through another budget cycle and since this came out of committee, it came in without being on the agenda cycle. And I think that I can see that that's where this seems to be coming in faster than people are ready for it that weren't on the committee. So the current moratorium does not expire till December 4th. If people want to leave this on as old business and it comes back through the agenda cycle, but I have not heard anybody that has missed those e-scooters.
Yeah, I guess to finish what I was trying to say, Alton, it's in the same vein as you. I haven't heard anyone who's missed these in the 2 years we've been talking about this topic. I think that if folks know that we heard the recommendations and approved them, this is just saying that, we hear you, AIM, we hear you, LRC, we acknowledge the work that you've done and have, are on board with, we understand the considerations you've made, and then give people a month to study the recommendations, to study what AIM has said, to study the other considerations we've made, and then come back and vote on a ban or not in a month. I don't think that's too much to ask. So I'm not sure if there's a motion on the table right now or not. Or is there a motion and a substitute motion already?
Commissioner Davenport raised a hold, but it died for lack of a second.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Mayor, based upon the commissioner's input, it does. I would say, I guess what we'll need to have an ordinance that prohibits them to take the place of the moratorium. So that will have to come back through a regular agenda setting item, and that will give a chance for input, like Commissioner has said. So.
And if we even, I know it's not typical, but if we wanted to do a work session on the recommendation so that people could tune in and watch and see what AIM has said and what we've discussed in committee, that way they can be informed and reaching out to us to convey their opinion. I mean, on the flip side, I will say that when we move to ban dockless shareable mobility devices, those companies lobbied their users to email us and to call us and to send us text messages, etc., using the app itself, as well as their large database of users, to make it difficult to see who, what community members are actually contacting us about, are these really our constituents, etc. And so I hear and don't mind opening it up for more input. I just also want to make people aware of what that might trigger on the end of the companies that are being impacted by this ban. But I still say that we, approve the recommendations tonight, give it a month to educate the public about what they mean, and then come back together in a month to either approve or deny a permanent ban.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Hare, did I see your hand?
You did. I'm of the opinion, the committee, I'm not on the LRC, but the committee did a lot of work. They heard from a lot of people. We've been having a community conversation about this for, at least a year, if not longer. In my opinion, these things are dangerous on the sidewalk. They're dangerous in the road. There's no place that they're not dangerous. They're dangerous for the users. They're dangerous for people that are collided with by people using these. The university has said they're not going to be allowed on campus, which means that if they're taken by people to get to campus, they're going to be left God knows where, all over the sidewalk. We get no support from Bird, Lyft, Chicken, whatever. I think we should just ban the damn things and be done with it.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Denson?
Thank you. And just to clarify, I think, and Commissioner Wright brought it up, I think what threw me was that that this was passed out of committee in the September LRC meeting. And so it didn't go, so the previous item that we had for LRC, it was on our agenda setting session. It was discussed during the agenda setting session. We have had, it went into the regular cycle. So we discussed it. Everybody knew it was going to be on there. The public knew it was going to be on there, and so on. And that just this one, it didn't pop up on the agenda until Friday. And so that is more of what I'm speaking to, is that it didn't get there. So I was thrown by surprise. I didn't get to have maybe as much dialogue as I would like to with my fellow commissioners. And while I agree that these companies did manipulate the use of the dockless scooters, the reason this became such a big issue, though, was because there were a lot of people who used them, and I did hear from some of them. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to sway the vote, but this was a big item, and I guess I was just caught by surprise that it happened so quickly. Government Operations Committee met on the same day, also on September 17th, and we had things pass out of that committee, but they're not on the agenda tonight. They're going to be on next month's agenda, which is, I believe, the way it normally goes through the process. And the second item I would say is that, as this conversation is interesting, is I would like us to clarify what these recommendations mean then, because I thought also that if we voted on this, we are banning these scooters. And I want to see if I don't want to be doing all that committee work, just making a two-step process. If we're making recommendations and we're accepting the recommendations, let's accept the policies that those recommendations hold. And let's have that be our precedent in the way that this committee works, so that things are not drawn out for months, because I don't think that's the way we've done things in the past. I guess I would like that clarified also. But the only thing that speaking, and I guess I will second Commissioner Davenport's motion for tabling. All I'm asking for is to go into the regular cycle, so we have a kind of a set cycle of how our committee work comes out, giving tons of time for the commissioners, plus also, and the input. When I talk about input, I'm not saying that I want to have some kind of formalized input process. More so, just that my constituents know this is something we're voting on. I can include it in my newsletter that I send out, so they know I'm voting on it. They can give me input if they have it, and if they don't, cool. But let's just have a process that is consistent, and that leaves that room for dialogue within us, our body, plus also the outside.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'll note that given that this will require an ordinance, and we do have a moratorium whose sunset is coming up quickly, if you were interested in making a motion to table, would you accept a friendly amendment to accept a motion to table and direct the attorney's office to draft an ordinance that pursues this goal?
Definitely. That's exactly what I want. Is I want, when we vote on this, for it to actually be empowered to do what we want it to actually do, not just require another month's work.
Mayor, do you mind if I say something? This is Mike.
Go ahead, Mike.
Certainly, I don't disagree with Commissioner Denson about following procedure. But I think that needs to apply to all the time, because we do have another agenda item on here, which I'm going to support, relates to the alcohol carrying ordinance that was put on there on Friday as well. So, if we're asking to follow procedures in the cycles and such as that, then we need to make sure we adhere to that all the way around. So thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any other input on this item? Isn't it always the case, my friends, that the most consequential things in life fall on our agenda and consume the time that they do? All right, so we have a motion on the floor to hold this item and direct the attorney's office to prepare an ordinance that pursues the goal embodied in the committee recommendation. Does everybody understand that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We're going to do roll call.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Yeah, I'd like to do roll call, please.
All right, we'll go ahead and do a roll call. All right, the motion was from Commissioner Davenport. Second was from Commissioner Denson. So, Ms. Howard, if you go ahead and do a roll call for us, please.
Davenport,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Link,
Yes.
Wright,
No.
Denson,
Yes.
Edwards.
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Nay.
Harry,
Nay.
No.
Hamby.
No.
5 yes, 4 no.
All right. Motion carries. So we're going to see this again next month, and we're also going to see an agenda item along with it that has an ordinance. All right, we are moving on. Item number 16 is simply truing up local ordinance code with state law regarding delivery of alcohol. Attorney Drake, can you briefly summarize this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The state legislature recently enacted a law that became effective August 1 that allows for the delivery of alcohol.
Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt. Wasn't that 5 no, 4 yes?
I believe Mayor Pro Tem Edwards is correct. I believe that the previous motion failed.
So let's see. So thank you for bringing that up. So the no's were Commissioner Wright,
Myself,
Commissioner Harrod,
Thornton, and Hamby.
Yeah, that's what I had.
I'm sorry, did Hamby say yes or no? I thought he said yes.
Andy said no.
Okay.
Should have said nay.
All right.
Should've.
All right. So I apologize, everybody. My counting is off as well, and apologize for that. So we'll return to discussion of the previous item.
I would like to make a motion.
You are you gonna do it?
I keep you all on tenterhooks. I was waiting for Kelly. Okay.
All right. So back to the original motion too.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the LRC and we direct the attorney's office to draw up the appropriate legislation to ban the shareable dockless mobility devices.
Seconded.
Oh, go ahead.
All right. So I've got Commissioner Harrod as the motioner, and we're going to give it to Commissioner Parker for the second. All right. Madam Clerk, if you go ahead and do a roll call, beginning with Commissioner Harrod.
Commissioner Harrod,
Yes.
Thornton,
Yes.
Hamby,
Yes.
Davenport,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Link,
Sorry. Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Denson,
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Okay.
9 yes.
Okay.
All right. We'll see the ordinance draft next month. All right. Thanks.
Sorry, Jed.
Russell, I appreciate that a bunch. Thanks, everyone. All right. Returning to alcohol delivery, which will not be delivered on a shareable mobile device. So, Attorney Drake, I interrupted you earlier. If you could describe this again for us.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. At the last legislative session, the Georgia legislature enacted legislation which allows for home delivery of sealed packages of alcohol by packaged good retailers. And this legislation allows a packaged goods retailer to sell and deliver malt beverages and wine in unbroken packages to an individual for personal use, but not for resale, unless such delivery is prohibited by a local ordinance or resolution. This amendment to the ordinance takes away that prohibition. Currently, we prohibit that. And so if the commission approves this tonight, it will allow for home delivery of alcoholic beverages in accordance with the legislation that adopted this past legislative session.
And so, given the underlying state law, Attorney Drake, this would just be sealed packages of alcohol, so still no mixed drinks. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Just want to clarify for anybody who might be watching, since that's been an issue of conversation. All right. Any commission input on this item? Commissioner Wright can't wait to talk about getting alcohol delivered.
I'm
Go
just
right ahead.
saying, this is LRC's kind of thing, but I'm glad it didn't have to get kicked into committee. I had asked about what we needed to do to move this forward at a previous time, a couple hundred years ago, 2 months ago. But anyway, so Tim, I'm glad that you were watching that it had gone through what was needed at the state and had that come through. And I appreciate the attorney's work who was quickly getting this into our hands in a timely manner for those businesses that are struggling. And this is also going to be very helpful with. So I look forward to approving it.
Commissioner Davenport, do you want to leave your address for any alcohol vendors out there?
Yes, please, Lord Jesus. I would like to thank Commissioner Disson for catching this. There have been a lot of businesses who contacted me and like, hey, when y'all going to do this, when catch up with the state. So this is going to help a lot of local businesses during this COVID pandemic. So, and, better to drink at home than to be out on the street. So thank you for catching this.
Commissioner Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and really appreciate the number of like restaurants and local businesses, including local delivery businesses, who were kind of following this closely, and this is going to definitely just help benefit a lot of the businesses that right now are struggling through the pandemic. And yeah, I think Commissioner Davenport brings up a great point. I mean, we're trying to actually encourage people not to be going out. So bring that drinking inside. And also those at home who might have some concerns because it sounds a little risky about just like driving around the booze. The reason there was a bit of a delay was the Department of Revenues came up with a very thorough list of requirements that any entities doing this delivery have to actually go by, including getting certified drivers and such. So it's going to be done in a very responsible manner. And with that, I'm not sure if there was a motion already, but I'll make a motion for us to go into.
Second.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Denson, second from Commissioner Davenport.
Mr. Mayor, let me read the ordinance real quickly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
An ordinance to amend the code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to the delivery of alcoholic beverages and for other purposes.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. Start dialing, my friends. All right, we're moving on to item number 17. This is the Office of Operational Analysis Inmate Healthcare Contract Compliance Audit Report. Commissioner Link is chair of the audit committee. Would you like to provide any prelude or make a motion for this?
Yeah, this was actually accepted by the audit committee 2 meetings ago. There was, and the reason it's on new business is there was some glitch in getting it filed through the audit software process. Apparently it's read differently coming from the auditor's office. What we're talking about process, I just want to confirm that's why why we didn't see it at our agenda session. And I also want to add that there was a second item, which I mentioned earlier, the work plan, in which we had voted to authorize an audit of the police department and also the elections office, the interface between the elections office and the Board of Elections. The mayor requested that we not have that on the agendas. We've already passed it. It's already gone through committee. We may have some discussion at our meeting next week about adding some documentation to that agenda item. But I just want to, for anybody who was watching the audit committee meeting, which I know people do, I know it's a thrilling committee, just to clarify that. And as far as this report goes, this is the inmate medical services audit report. This was an expansion of the audit of the sheriff's office that was authorized a while back. And there are some significant findings that, we are in a kind of a transitional period. We will have a new sheriff come January, whoever is elected next month. So I think that this information will be very helpful to the new sheriff. There were some findings specifically recommending a contract manager with the sheriff's office. There were some inconsistencies and vagaries in the contracting, some inconsistencies in the budgets that this contractor presented through the years. I'll turn it over to the auditor to, explain the major findings to the whole commission and point out any specific questions that anyone might have, she can highlight those.
Commissioner Link, you were doing fantastic, actually. I'll be very brief. The scope of the audit was to determine if the healthcare contractor was in compliance with the agreed contract. And that was why the scope of the original audit was expanded after hearing some concerning statements from some of the deputies. Ultimately, after the audit was concluded, 3 findings were noted. And the primary one, like Commissioner Link mentioned, was a recommendation for a jail contract administrator, someone that has healthcare experience, but not practice medicine, someone that has experience with reading ICD-9 codes and medical billing, and someone that has experience with assisting the department with their budgeting. Healthcare and overtime are tied together, and the department consistently goes over budget, and it may be what they need, but having someone dedicated to that to that role would ensure that the only thing that they're paying attention on is the healthcare contract company. Now, the recommendation was not to babysit that company and to give them orders. It was more so to evaluate the contract that was signed and then to follow up with the contractor on things like the contractor is supposed to provide a monthly statistical report on outcomes that happen at the jail. In our review, we found that sometimes the statistical report was presented and sometimes it wasn't. So having someone that is paying attention to it would be helpful. Also, the jail healthcare administrator would be someone that could go out into the community and possibly solicit local medical professionals for discounts on medical services. It's very tough for anyone in the jail to leave. And so having someone that has knowledge of the medical field and someone that has knowledge of their population could have a compelling discussion with someone in a medical office or a medical practice, and at least ask if it's possible for a discount. Right now, that's not happening. The second recommendation was the contract language was confusing. And the reason why I say that is because if you will recall, I believe it was July or August, you were asked to vote on an increase in the budget for the sheriff's office that was related to healthcare. Well, and I think Manager Williams explained that there is a step ladder that kind of coincides or ties with the CPI, and the increase is expected, which is true. However, the increase is actually already built into the contract with the CPI stepladder already calculated on an annual basis. And so it's one of those things that no one is paying attention to. However, a healthcare administrator might catch that. Another anomaly is the sheriff's office may sometimes go over their expenditure, their budget, because of the inmate count. So they agree in the contract on a certain amount, and if they go over that, they pay a per inmate fee per day every month, which can actually climb pretty high. But more so than that, the contractor uses those numbers to determine how much the contract is going to increase. And that is how they justify not using what was stated on the contract. Well, here's one thing that we found when it came to the average daily population. We received 3 sets of numbers. And so we don't know what was calculated to determine the increase, which warranted a several $100,000 increase in contract between one fiscal year and the second fiscal year. So that's the second one. Are there any questions before I go to the last one? Okay. The last finding was that we reviewed over the summer several 100,000 medical transactions. And I'm not 100,000, I'm sorry, several hundred transactions, and we did not find one invoice tied to the transaction in the system. And that is not how it is supposed to be presented. If you think about it, you have an invoice, and what we saw was a total. And it was not itemized. It did not itemize, let's just say pharmacy, the pharmacy by class and cost. It didn't itemize anything like that, or if it was a hospital, which hospital. It was just a flat fee. On top of that, it was just signed off by 3 individuals in the jail, and then it was presented for payment. The problem with that is that's a liability waiting to happen if you're not able to determine if the cost is justified. You're not able to determine, if the healthcare jail administrator would be able to use that information to plan for the budget process. All the 3 tied together, but that's it in a nutshell. A couple of quick things. I had a conversation with the attorney's office for advice about the significant increase from one fiscal year to the next in the contract when it was already spelled out. And he was quite surprised, and he stated that if the contract price is increasing this to this level, we don't normally see the contract again. They usually just review and approve initially. But it's one of those things that you might want to think about as a discussion later down the line. And I will say that I think that's it. I said too much. If anyone has any questions,
any questions?
I can answer them for you.
For Auditor.
Come on.
I had one question. Just one.
All right.
So I was wondering how. So the medical services contractor was able to go through with these surveys, which I was, happy to see the reports of, but we were not legally able to conduct interviews with the patients. I was wondering if the attorney could explain that part of how the scope of the audit was somewhat tweaked.
Yes.
Well, my recollection, and I came to the audit committee and discussed this with the committee, was that we had concerns with violating HIPAA requirements and rules. A lot of that stuff's protected, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Folks may have heard from national media about HIPAA this week.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions? Motion for, Commissioner Danson.
I just want to thank the Office of Operational Analysis and the Audit Committee for prioritizing this and having this go through. I mean, just looking at, if nothing else, that very, very large increase just over that fiscal year between FY17 and FY18 is concerning. And I hope that that this body will, further look into this. Obviously, this audit does not, as it says, go into any addressing the quality of healthcare that's being provided. Although I definitely have concerns about that also. But just this one basic idea of, in 2018, the sheriff's office had a total budget of $3.3 million for operations, and that this contract was 57% of the operational cost. 57% of the cost to operate the jail, the sheriff's office, went to this contract. That definitely should send up some alerts, and so I'm glad that the audit committee and the Office of Operational Analysis jumped on that. Of course, it wasn't in the purview of this study here, but one of the best ways for us to decrease that cost is to decrease the population in the jail in the first place, which I know and I'm very happy that is happening currently, that we can continue on that work. But I also just want to voice my continued concerns of us relying upon a for-profit prison company, jail company, to be providing these services. As we see, profit is the driving motivation behind them. And we see that possibly being abused here. I definitely would like us to be able to find a nonprofit, possibly locally based entity moving in the future to be providing the health care for our inmates. Thank you. That's all I have.
I do have one quick thing. The last finding where I stated that we reviewed hundreds of transactions and did not find an itemized invoice to tie to it, that was initially during the draft period of the audit. The sheriff's office provided us with dozens and dozens and dozens of copies. So they are receiving them from the contractor, but they're not submitting them with the invoice to finance, which is what normally happens with every department. But they do receive the itemized invoices from the contractor.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Yes, sir.
All right. Entertain a motion for acceptance.
I had something real quick, Mr. Mayor. So then, Ms. Maddox, so then how is finance paying in the absence of an invoice to direct them what they should pay? How are they paying?
Okay, well,
does the sheriff just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, give these people $100," or what?
No, sir. There are approximately four individuals that are in the accounts payable division, and as I understand, they process anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 transactions per week, and their primary focus and direction is to make sure the invoice is signed and that the responsibility that the transaction is has been verified is on the department.
You're talking about the sheriff's office has accounts payable people?
No, they submit their invoices to the finance department. And by the time it gets to the finance department, their direction is that if it has all the requisite signatures, then the sheriff's office or whatever department has approves the transaction.
But I thought you mentioned that you were unable to find the invoices.
I was not able to find one invoice, and I can't explain it. I reviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transactions.
So Manager Williams, I mean, are these invoices in the finance department, or where are the invoices?
I'm going to need to ask the finance director about that.
I mean, I'm curious, how are we going to audit this 57% operating cost of our sheriff's office if we can't access the invoice?
Well, I'd like to clarify that with the finance staff,
Sure.
and I can do that tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, that's kind of how we would check to make sure the payments are legitimate, correct? To make sure that the invoice is billing legitimate charges. So it concerns me that invoices are not a part of this process.
I agree.
Mayor, if I could just clarify, because I think there's a little bit of confusion that there are technically, if I'm reading the report correctly, there are technically invoices that the sheriff's department is submitting, but they're exceptionally vague. And as the report says, they do not include information that can prove that these things are actually reasonable, necessary, or at the best negotiated rate. That the language is very vague and not actually spelling out what services are being provided, just saying medical care.
Correct.
And those things are just being pushed through. Yeah.
That's right. And an example is almost annually, the sheriff's office would be presented with an invoice, a single sheet of paper for a large amount of money, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for pharmacy costs. And it's a single line, and the description says pharmacy costs.
Okay, sorry to cut you off. I have another question. So what documentation do we have access to that originates from the medical services provider that helps populate those sheriff's invoices? What information do we have that's being sent from that provider, that contractor, to the sheriff's office to generate that invoice?
Like examples of what they have? Like they have.
What documents do they send? Do they send a payment request or something to the sheriff, and then the sheriff then creates an invoice that's sent to finance?
That's correct. That's correct. And when
were we able to look at those payment requests from the contractor's company? Did those have sufficient specificity?
They were absolutely correct. And in line with what should be submitted with the invoice. I don't know why they aren't doing that.
Okay, so this is just an issue where the sheriff is not communicating this specific information originating from the contractor through to the finance office.
Yes.
Okay, well, that is less concerning to me, but okay.
They provided a couple of dozen examples for me to see that they actually do receive the itemizations for their medical transactions.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
that's helpful clarification.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Andy?
Thanks. I just have a couple of comments. So the first is that there seems to be some disagreement as to the proportion of the overall cost of running the jail that this particular contract is. So the report, I'm looking at page 194 of the PDF. So the report suggests that the total cost to run the jail in FY18 was $3.3 million, of which 1.9 million was paid to Armor, which is the 57% that everybody's talking about. But the sheriff's office responds and says that actually the total cost to run the jail was 11.9 million, and so that 57% is inaccurate. So if we're going to talk about percentages, I don't know which is the appropriate number to be used, whether it's the 3.3 million or the 11.9 million. But I do think it's important that we're all using the same number. So that's my first comment. The second comment I had was more of a broader comment. So when I was looking at the report and it was talking about the questionnaires, I guess, that have gone to some of the inmates, one of the questions was, do you believe your health has improved while you've been here, meaning the jail? and 67% of people said yes. And I think it's a pretty sad state of affairs when 2/3 of the people who are at the jail are getting better health care in jail than they are out of jail. And I think that says a lot about our society, that we're the only industrial nation that doesn't have a national health system, a public option. And I think that's pretty pathetic. I think the nurses, the medical staff seem to be doing a great job, but in the grand scheme of things, having to go to jail to get decent health care is a sign of not a very compassionate society, in my opinion.
Amen.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner.
May I speak to your the budget related one? You know, I
Sure.
generated a budget report months and months and months ago when I put this entry into the report. And so the department's budget is broken down into divisions. So you have the overall budget, and that may be the 11 million. And then they have 3 divisions. They have administrative, jail, and field. And so I would have thought that I would have ran and generated a report for solely for the jail budget, for the contractor that works at the jail. Without being able to run a report right now, I can't say that's exactly what I did, but that's what I should have did. And I would have thought I did do that, just solely looking at the jail.
Well, I mean, I don't want to, I think this is just something that needs to be clarified, but It does very clearly on page 194 of the PDF, under report highlights, page 1, it says, blah, blah, blah. The total cost to run the jail in FY18 was $3,348,534, of which the sheriff's office paid Armor $1.9 million, or 57% of the total jail budget. And then the sheriff's office response is the total cost to run the jail is $11.9 million. We ask that the resulting percentage be corrected. Personnel costs are a portion of what we pay Armor, and it should likewise be a part of the same calculation for our jail budget if the two figures are going to be compared. So I don't really care which of the numbers it is, but I think everybody needs to be using the same set of numbers and on the same page if we're going to be talking about the percentages.
Mm-hmm. I could tell you we did not look at employees. We just looked at medical expenditures, and we looked at the medical expenditures that were outlined in the agreement that was signed between the sheriff's office and the contractor. So we itemized those transactions and we compared it to the budget, and then that's where the jail budget came. It did not discuss any positions to serve at every post in their contract. And so with this particular review, it was just verifying compliance with the contract. So every single paragraph where there was a figure, I tied it back to their budget for the jail. And they did not make mention of sheriff's office employees, but they did for their own. They did have an allocation for their own, the contractor staff.
Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Further questions? All right. Is there a motion for acceptance of the audit report?
So moved.
I'll second.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Thornton, a second from Commissioner Link. Any further input? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, item number 18, next item on the agenda is grant application and acceptance for the Board of Elections for a $115,000 grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. So any input on this item or motion for acceptance? Commissioner Edwards?
Second.
Any further input? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Application and potential grant accepted. All right. Item 19 is new to the public because it's here on new business under suspension of rules, but this is something that this body and our staff have been working on for many years, and we are finally at a critical juncture point. And this is acceptance of a motion to approve the purchase and sale of approximately 190 acres from Rock Hill LLC, WAS Rock Holdings LLC, MJS Holdings LLC, and the Newland Family Foundation, and to approve the assumption of the lease and quarrying agreement with Hanson Aggregates Southeast in an item that's attached to this. Long and short of this is that we have spoken for quite some time as a government about wanting to be more heavily invested in water reuse. And so that's the phenomenon in which we take water that has come down our drains, could get modestly amended and be for non-potable uses as for industrial uses, and stored for some period of time before ultimately being reused and then entered into our river system at our 3 waste treatment facility plants. So this is the large quarry that is adjacent to the airport that anyone who's driven down Winterville Road has encountered. And the agreement would be to purchase this, provide for several additional years of quarrying operation, but ultimately to have this dramatically expanded capacity for water storage in our community, creating a great deal of resilience. And I'll note that I think the very first year that Commissioner Harrod and I were associated with this government, the crisis of that year, 2007, was the very dramatic drought that we had, so dramatic that I could walk across the Middle Oconee River from Ben Burton Park to the other shore. And so,
fun times.
Good times indeed. Yes, so many good times that we have experienced together, my friend. And this would ensure such an enormous measure of resiliency for this community that I think we would never find ourselves again, and future generations would never find themselves in the boat that we found ourselves in 2007. So just an enormously impactful activity. And I want to give a great deal of thanks to our staff, to Manager Williams, to Attorney Drake, to Public Utilities Director Frank Stevens, to the soon-to-retire Glenn Coleman, who's been in that department for 43 years, I will note, and so many more on staff. Manager Williams, I'm going to go ahead and just ask you to make any other pertinent comments, but for something that's coming to us tonight, this is in some ways maybe among the most long-term consequential decisions that this body will make.
I appreciate that. That's a great overview, Mayor. I only add a few other things. And for Glenn Coleman, it's been 48 years. I just wanted to let you know.
Oh, thank you.
It's amazing. But the Mayor and Commission and our staff have been working on this for literally years. I think when you look at the opportunity to, provide drought resiliency, Athens-Clarke County is 50 miles away from the top of our watershed, so we depend on raindrops that fall within 50 miles for all of our drinking water. And just the ingenuity I think our staff has provided, and let's recognize that creating a new reservoir has a lot of environmental impact. This quarry is here within Athens-Clarke County. The magic of this, it would take us years to develop an alternative. The mining company is going to continue to mine. He's actually going to make the hole bigger for us and hold more water. And the staff and the Mayor and Commission have approved steps to allow us to reuse water and mix that with raw water. When just think about filling up this quarry from the river when the river's really high and you're not depriving anybody downstream of any water, then having that ready to mix with reuse water and retreat. This is a huge win for this community, and I think the staff and the Mayor and Commission deserve all the credit.
Thanks, Blaine. Commissioner Link.
The manager mentioned the environmental benefits of gaining additional water access through a quarry rather than a reservoir. There is some pretty substantial environmental impacts when you have to create a whole new reservoir. So I'm really overjoyed that we have this opportunity. And it's not just a great environmental and, water resource opportunity, but, there is some recreational potential in this property down the line. It's somewhat adjacent to the Firefly Trail. I think it'll be a real boon to the community for practical purposes as well as recreational ones. And the taxpayers of Athens-Clarke County are about to be owners of a big giant hole in the ground full of water.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Harrod?
Is it me?
Yep.
All right. Sorry, you broke up. I think this is a great opportunity. As the manager mentioned, or maybe it was the mayor mentioned, we've been working on this for many years. I think it's good for our community. I would like to give some kudos to some of the elected officials that are no longer sitting in the seats that on the mayor and commission that were also involved in this. So there's a lot of credit to go around. Our staff did a great job on this. I would agree with what Commissioner Link said and the manager said. The fact that we are not having to build a reservoir, that this is kind of a pre-made reservoir for us, is a significant environmental benefit for us. This is really going to secure the water for Athens-Clarke County for the next 100 years. I mean, this is a major infrastructure project that we're investing in. And one of the things that I think is also important to bear in mind is, unlike Bear Creek, we don't have to share this water with any of the other counties. Bear Creek, we're in a cooperative cooperative relationship with 3 other counties, and so we only get a proportion. I think it's 44%, if my math is correct. I can't remember now, but a certain percentage of the water that is in Bear Creek. This will be 100% Athens-Clarke County water, and I think that is really going to see us really well through the future droughts that are coming. Global climate change is making the Southeast drier and hotter as we move into the future, and so this resource becomes ever more important, and I think it's a really great thing for our community to have. We won't see it being used basically as a reservoir for several decades now, but to have this in our back pocket when all of us will be gone, I think this is a really great gift to the future generations of Athens-Clarke County. So I'm really proud of what we're doing here tonight.
Further discussion, Commissioner Denson.
Yeah, I mean, how long, but I think it can't be said enough. I've been very impressed by our staff coming up with such a proposal that's financially beneficial, environmentally beneficial, with the purple pipe, like Commissioner Link spoke to, and also giving us having that foresight to prepare this community for decades, if not centuries. I don't think it's going to be hard for the community not to be as excited as they should be about this, because this is one of those things that we're putting in place for those dire situations that we need to be prepared for. We don't want to think about, but we should be prepared for. And so I'm my hat's off to staff and the manager's office, and definitely to all of those other elected officials that came before us for having that foresight and putting this in place. This is gonna save future lives, future economies. It's pretty amazing. So very appreciative.
Thanks, Commissioner Denson. Manager Williams, one detail that I think may be in this agenda report, although I didn't see it at first glance, but I know we've discussed previously, is the anticipated capacity of this quarry upon transfer to the unified government, say relative to the capacity of the Bear Creek Reservoir. Could you say a word or two about comparing the two in terms of storage capacity?
Yes, I don't think we have it in the agenda item, I think Commissioner Thornton wanted to say something, and if you just give me a minute, if she did, I thought I saw your hand. Let me get that for you, and I'll come back to you.
Thanks, Manager Williams. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Thornton.
No, I was just going to ditto Commissioner Denson. I know most of my constituents may not even be aware of the benefit for all of Clarke County. And they depend on us to share that information. And I think it's important that the commissioners prior to the current commission had this vision, and we're able to carry it through. That's my only thing. I like to take every opportunity to let folk know that some things just don't happen in the 4 years that we serve. It's a carryover, and we've got to give credit and recognition to people who started a process. So I'm just glad and really honored to be able to be with the current group to follow us through. Again, I know most of my constituents are probably not even paying attention to this, but this is going to be a huge value for all of Clarke County.
Thanks, Mayor, for just giving me a second. It's roughly the same, and remember, we're talking about in 2030 once mining continues, but between 4 and 5 billion gallons will be in the Rock Hill Quarry, and Bear Creek is about 4.6, so it's roughly the same. But as you pointed out, or one of the commissioners pointed out, it's not split with other counties. It will be here and augment our share of the Bear Creek Reservoir as well. And I echo everything the commissioners have said this evening.
All right. Great work, everybody. Any further input? All right. I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right. I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards, a second from Commissioner Link. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Good on you. All right. Item is approved. All right, moving on to item number 20. This is a revised intergovernmental agreement for the North Downtown Athens Development Project property acquisition, concerning acquisition of the property by the Athens Housing Authority. Attorney Drake, is there anything you would note about this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This revised intergovernmental contract will allow the Housing Authority to go ahead and purchase the Bethel property. Previously, when we did the first intergovernmental contract for acquisition, it required the master plan be approved prior to the purchase. And as you're aware, with the impact of the COVID upon our community, it hindered the ability to develop that master plan. So the agreement still specifies that before any development can begin or redevelopment, the master plan has to be approved by the commission. But however, there's a need to go ahead and acquire it, and so this will authorize that.
Thank you, Attorney Drake. All right. Any questions about this? All right. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. I've got a motion from Commissioner Edwards, a second from Commissioner Davenport. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, can you just put out a reminder that there is a socially distanced public meeting, planning meeting about this this project? I believe it's on October 12th. Is that the right date?
Thanks for that, Commissioner. I think I can pull it up on my calendar.
It's actually Sunday and Monday coming.
So this coming week. I have something for the 12th on my calendar. But there are some public meetings coming up. So people who are interested in this project, the redevelopment of Bethel and the massive redevelopment of this whole area of North Downtown, I urge y'all to look at, what is it, northdowntown.com, the website, and
you can find a link on our site.
Yeah. Attend some of these meetings or look at some of the information on the site. It's really important that we have input from the general community, and get creative ideas from throughout the community in this vision. It's a real community visioning that's going to be of great benefit to the whole community. The folks who currently live in Bethel are going to get safe, affordable housing, and there'll be additional housing, workforce housing, family housing, as well as some commercial opportunities and amenities, services and needs to meet folks who live in the immediate area.
Mayor, I've got some specifics on that if you'd like.
Yeah, go right ahead. I appreciate it, Manager Williams.
Yes, Commissioner Thornton and Link are correct. These are open houses, and one is on Sunday, October 11th from noon to 6 at the Bethel Village Green. Or if you can't make that, Monday, October 12th from noon to 6 at Lay Park Playground. There'll be tents, social distancing, masks are required, and they'll be collecting feedback that will help to go into the master plan.
Great. Thank you for that. All right. And thanks, Melissa, for reminding us of that. All right. Moving forward to item number 21. This is now the 9th ordinance declaring local emergency. And Attorney Drake, this would take us through first week of November. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I believe that is correct. Actually, a little beyond that point, but it gets us back where we can do it at the beginning of every month instead of the middle of months.
Okay.
So we would come back in November. That's correct. Correct.
Great.
Yep.
Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, Kelly, I have a question, or whoever might be able to answer it. The recent governor's, he's a little ahead on his, and didn't he move the state of health emergency to November, like 9th or something? And I was wondering how that impacts some of our timelines.
Well, I can speak to that. Ours is not dependent upon the governor. So, the main thing we were trying to do, our current one doesn't expire to the middle of this month, but we figured out that it would require y'all approving it at a work session, and we don't like to have things on the work session agenda. So we said, well, let's just do it at the beginning of the month. And that way we'll get back, we're doing it at the beginning of every month is what our goal was.
Okay. So just to be clear for the public, we're not changing anything. We're staying where we are. And the changes that could happen with the governors, we will be meeting again by the time we would learn of changes that might happen.
Correct. And if we would have to modify anything locally, we would have a session to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But yeah, this is status quo.
Yeah. I make a motion we approve.
I'll second.
Right.
I just want to add something. We witnessed this weekend our first game day, and we're a unique community, and the governor's order allows us very little leeway in managing pandemically appropriate behavior among visitors to this community, or even our long-term visitors, the students. So I'd ask this body that we take a look at some further measures to enforce mask wearing, have more opportunity for people to do what they are going to do, inevitably get together and party and drink, do it in a more safe manner outdoors where we can keep an eye on folks and enforce some social distancing. And I'd like to expand the conversation with UGA. I do have a call scheduled tomorrow. I have some ideas I'd like to bring to them as well. So, I mean, what I saw Saturday afternoon was pretty terrifying, and, it's inevitable. We're going to see a spike. Often UGA students and the general community of Athens don't interface a whole lot, except on game days they do. And this pandemic, it's inevitable. We're going to see some serious crossover into our community, particularly our working class service industry community. And I shudder to think what's going to happen when all these students go home to their families at Thanksgiving, many of them likely infected with COVID. So I just want to put that out there.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any further thoughts or questions? All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright, second from Commissioner Link. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right. Moving on. We do have one adoption proclamation, and it is the Classic City Rotary Club, who's adopted Sunset Drive between Prince Avenue and King Avenue. Thank you very much for that, Classic City Rotary. People after my own heart over there. See anything from the manager?
Just the grant of $38,000 for additional PPE for our fire and emergency services department, and that's within the thresholds approved by you.
All right. Thanks, Blaine. All right. Anything from the auditor?
I just have one thing, and it's related to the audit of the sheriff's office inmate medical contract compliance. I just looked up their budget, and their jail budget is around $11 million. And I actually tied all the figures strictly to what was identified in their medical agreement. But I can do a better job of explaining that in the report. So I just wanted you to know that I'm going to update that before it's published online.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I had a question for the manager real quick about that grant for the PPE for the first responders, frontline. Is that for our people, or is that going to be given away? Because I know we've given away 4,800 masks in the downtown district over the course of the pandemic. Are we still giving those out downtown?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, sir. We still, a lot of the early masks were bought through the Transit CARES Act funding that we have, and we have a good supply of masks. This is primarily for our folks, our first responders.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Don't we need to vote on that as item 23?
No, that's it's just a note from the manager because it's under his threshold of opportunity for accepting a grant.
I got you.
Mayor, if I might, I'm sorry. I did fail to mention something that the community, we had a huge loss this week, and we lost to be a public servant. Clarence Holman in our police department was somebody that was foundational to the way that our community policing evolved here. And I know he was loved and respected by many, and a big loss for all of us on staff here.
Yeah, our thoughts are with Clarence Holman's family. Thank you, Blaine. Attorney Drake, anything from you this evening?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Before we do round robin and move into executive session, I want to remind everyone in the public that advance voting starts next Monday. We have 3 full weeks of advanced voting, including a full weekend. And so I encourage everybody to go to www.accgov.com/elections, and you can find full information about those locations as well as the ballot drop boxes, about absentee by mail voting, and everything else you would want to know. Now's the time to make your plan, everybody. All right, I am going to go ahead. We'll go in reverse order. I'll begin with Commissioner Hamby, and we'll end with Commissioner Davenport.
I'm all good. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Mike. Ovita?
Actually, Commissioner Link took a little bit of my thunder about the Bethel open houses this weekend. And I'm really excited about how we are moving forward with Bethel. I wanted to thank the Downtown Authority. They have stepped up to provide internet services through Spectrum for residents with children that live downtown. And right now we have targeted about 20 families in Bethel that need internet services that the Downtown Authority will pick up the calls for, I think, until December, much like what the Housing Authority did. And the next thing I wanted to mention that I'm after talking to Blaine today, County Manager Williams, I'm very excited on how we're moving forward with the CARES money that we have entrusted to nonprofits to help those folk that are being affected by the COVID. I did hear from the Athens Business Alliance that right now they have 191 applicants that are interested from small businesses. I think this is huge, and I think it is a model for other counties on how we can work with community and nonprofits in the community to reach those people who are most in need. And lastly, I want to thank Auditor Stephanie Maddox. She has really stepped up and responded to the request of the committee. And sometimes it may not look like things are getting done, but sometimes it's not the auditor, it's the commissioners. So I want to recognize the good work and the efforts that she has been put forth to do some very informative audits. And we have a long way to go, but sometimes you got to acknowledge folk as you go along. Those are my comments.
Thanks, Avita. Andy?
Thank you, Callie. So I, like you and like the manager, would like to offer my condolences to the family of Mr. Holman. It's a great loss for our community. He was a widely respected man, and so my condolences to the family. I would also, I know we had some conversation this afternoon about what types of things we might be able to do to tighten up our enforcement of our emergency declaration within the straitjacket, really, that the governor's executive order places us under. And in that regard, I would like to thank our first responders, our police department, and others who have been trying to keep us safe through enforcing our mask ordinance. It still staggers me that 7 months into this pandemic, people still won't wear a mask. You know, we've had half of the White House now infected with COVID. The most sophisticated and important piece of technology that there is to beat back this pandemic is to just wear a mask. This should not be a political thing. It's about science. Wear the mask, save the economy. These are two different sides of the same coin. It's not one or the other. So I would really encourage everybody to take this much more seriously than some people have been taking it. We are now moving into winter. You know, we were told that the COVID was going to go away over the summer. Well, that didn't happen. But we're now getting into flu season as well. And I suspect that we will be seeing some spikes across not just the United States, but the world itself, at least the Northern Hemisphere, as we go into winter. So, wear a mask and don't be a jerk. Just wear a mask.
Thanks, Andy. Russell?
Thank you to staff and my colleagues for helping. We've got a couple of street lights put in the Deering Historic District, and I'm working to try to get some more. And I'd like to also thank us all for working together, driving down Prince and Broad for the game day. We had those large illuminated signs that said masks required by law. That's very clear, strong messaging from our government about what is expected here in Athens-Clarke County, and I think that's been effective. I'm honored to work with folks who are always pushing to do everything that we possibly can, and I would like to take a moment to celebrate what we've accomplished so far. I think that the culture of mask wearing in Athens and the importance that this body has put on it has helped contribute to a decline in cases that we've seen recently, to where now I think we're all getting more and more messages about going back to school soon, hopefully. And I think we're all waiting with bated breath to see what happens after yet another in-person home game for football happening this weekend. So we all have different constituencies among these institutions, but I'm proud to serve on this body, this government, this institution that has the children of Athens-Clarke County as a constituency. And I go to bed at night pretty well some nights when I'm not doom scrolling of what's happening with our White House. But most nights I go to bed pretty well because I know that I serve with folks who have really pushed in the state of Georgia to lead the way when it comes to protecting our community and prescribing appropriate practices to fight the pandemic. Not just prescribing practices, but providing relief effectively to small businesses and nonprofits. I think we've done a great job. So thanks, everybody. And Mr. Mayor, if you'd allow me, I had a quick question for the manager. Could you give us just a brief little update about Dr. Lip's wastewater surveillance that we're working to get going so we can get a better grip on what the pandemic's looking like?
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Dr. Lip did provide that proposal Sunday evening, and we're just checking it over. She's already gone ahead and started on the work. Begin getting mobilized for it. But for the public, what this is a UGA professor and scientist who has been sampling our wastewater down at our water reclamation facilities. To date, she has been sampling at 2. We have 3, and she was limited by funding and to help both with the testing cost and the staff. The commission has shown an interest in helping her. She is seeking a National Institute of Health grant. The proposal is to sample at all 3 water reclamation facilities, and then further up the sewer shed, as it's called, closer to some actual areas of density, some apartment complexes, that type of thing. And let me just explain to you the utility of this. It's not as if you can track people down through the sewage system, but what it is, it's really sort of an early warning system. And the scientists can detect the amount of viral load that's being shed through the sewer system and extrapolate that back and be able to tell, even before people get tested, what we could expect as far as positive cases. This work's been going on for several months now. There's some trending data that we already have, but it's been a little incomplete because we haven't had all of our water reclamation facilities, and this will fill those gaps. And we will be supporting this effort with resiliency package funds the Mayor and Commission approved back in July that will help us partner with other public health partners to help with the pandemic.
Thanks, Manager Williams. And I know I had a conversation with Dr. Lip the other day, and we're really looking forward to those samples to be taken 2 weeks after the next home game. I think that hopefully that could be a critical point to gauge how the pandemic is moving forward through the winter. So thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Russell. Tim?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick things. In District 5, although I know this is a problem that we've had in multiple districts and it's something we're struggling with the entire community, about how we're assisting people who are experiencing homelessness in our community, what services are out there, how the services are working, how we can increase our capacity to be able to help them, and how we can ensure that while we're helping them, we're also ensuring the public safety of the entire community. We had a couple situations in District 5 over the last few months, and to address those concerns and to try to also address some misinformation around our criminal justice system and how it interacts with our homeless population, I'll be hosting a virtual District 5 town hall tomorrow night, which will have representatives from the Athens Homeless Coalition, from ACC's Housing Community Development, and Advanced Behavioral Health, along with also representatives from our ACC PD mental health co-responder units. So we can kind of dig into what's going on now, how we can do better, and how we can move forward here. So that's tomorrow night at 5:30 p.m. If anybody from District 5 or others want to submit questions early for that, they can go to timdensonforathens.com and submit those there. The second thing I wanted to bring up was I was able to participate in last night's virtual discussion around the Western Downtown Athens Historic District that the Planning Department had. And I know Commissioner Link was on there, and I know Commissioner Davenport and Commissioner Thornton joined us also. And it went very well, very, very impressed with staff. It was a great presentation, and I know that over 40 different people took advantage of it to be part of it there too. And it's also streaming on the ACC YouTube page. But something else I was impressed with is that they utilized the WebEx interactive kind of panel system, where people were able to submit questions and kind of be able to toggle them in and out of the meeting. And I know other communities have used this too, so they can ensure they have public input during their meetings. And I think an important part of our meetings that we've had to go without for the last few months because the pandemic has been that public input that we normally would have when we're in City Hall. And so I really push us to utilize that WebEx system that I thought worked very, very well and is easily controllable. People have to register to be able to give the public comments. We know that they're actually from Athens-Clarke County and they're from here, and we can kind of control, what is said and how it goes on. So there's no like expletives and kind of situations there. But I think that would be a good move for us so that we can ensure we have that community input and that transparency that I know is so important to this body and to this county government and to this community. So that's my recommendation, and I hope that we could use that or something similar. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Allison?
Thanks. I don't have anything more to add. I think Commissioner Harrod kind of captured some of my sentiments, or I agree with what he had covered in his dialogue. So I will pass it on down the line to Commissioner Link.
Commissioner.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo the concerns from my colleagues about the pandemic crisis and, how I think that Commissioner Harrod used the right word, straitjacket, in more ways than one. I feel like this local government is in a straitjacket, thanks to the governor, and also thanks to, in many ways, thanks to the individual one in the White House who refuses to set a proper example for pandemically appropriate behavior, as 209,000 Americans have met their grave in this crisis. And untold millions more will have lifelong consequences and probably meet their grave earlier than they should because of those lifelong consequences. The history will not be kind to some of those folks in this moment. But I do feel like this government has acted as appropriately as possible. I would hope that there are some more things we could do, especially when it comes to controlling some of these gatherings. I would like to see us revisit our noise ordinance and tighten it up so we can possibly give our officers more tools to control some of these gatherings. I don't know what it's going to take to get folks to put on a mask. It's really a shame. And I do hope that UGA can join us in getting the message out. They've done a good job on campus. Folks are wearing them on campus, but for some reason, once they cross over the arch, the mask can come off. And certainly once they cross the threshold of a bar, it comes off. I do want to give a shout out to our local businesses, and particularly our bar owners that are practicing as safely as possible, that have established outdoor spaces and that have taken out tables and have fans blowing in their establishments and plexiglass up and are mandating that folks wear masks and that they only take them off when they are seated. There are a handful of establishments, particularly in the West Washington Hull Street area and in Normaltown, where, we have local bar owners who they're struggling. They are struggling desperately to make a living, but they're also struggling to protect their workers and protect their patrons. So I think we need to recognize that there there are players out there that are doing what they need to do to make a living as safely as possible. But there are also those out there that are certainly not, and the governor gives them plenty of leeway not to. I know that our officers have issued several citations to some establishments that are on the verge of being shut down because they're not playing by even the governor's rules. So I just hope that we can put our heads together, get a little more creative. We'll be keeping an eye on the numbers. I also have been in communication with Dr. Lip. I've been following sewage testing since the spring when I was reading it out of European publications and forwarded information to the manager and public utilities. And when I found out Dr. Lip was doing this, I had communication with her and actually wrote her a recommendation letter. So hopefully she can get more funding so we can utilize this tool in this community. I know that UGA has not chosen to take advantage of it to pinpoint outbreaks in their dorms, even though this is common in several universities across the nation. So I hope that we can continue to move forward in getting creative on controlling this pandemic. And I want to speak briefly to the Downtown Historic District. It's going to be a whole new world when we come to the other side of this pandemic, and predatory capitalism is a thing. We saw it happen in Katrina. After a disaster, the predators move in. The people with big money are able to take advantage of people who are struggling. And I hope that we can move forward and pass a local historic district so our local property owners can take advantage of those tax breaks and have some incentive to hold on to their properties and hold on to their businesses, and have the opportunity to access funds to improve them. And I hope this local government can be a little more proactive in that improvement and preservation funding. All we have left is our local culture and our local history. Downtown has been given over so much to a constituency that has exhibited quite blatantly that they really don't care a whole lot about those of us who live and work here every single day, and those of us who have children here who cannot go to school because these folks refuse to follow some very simple public health directives. So I hope we consider these things as we move forward and consider what's really important in our community. And it's not just about money. It's about culture and people and history and humanity. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Commissioner Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to give a shout out to some community stakeholders and residents in East Athens I've been working with over the last several months, but particularly in the last couple of weeks, with regards to coming up with a comprehensive plan for the area, compiling some of the wealth of knowledge that has been generated in recent decades through previous studies, and getting together some experts to explore, what needs to happen in this area and figuring out how to make it happen. And I want to invite my constituents to be part of that process. We're meeting more or less every 2 weeks. Our next meeting is Sunday. What is that date? Sunday the 11th at the Community Hall in East Athens Development Corporation from 5 to 7. We're doing temperature checks. Everyone's wearing a mask. We're doing social distancing. So if you're able to come through, please do. There's a lot of information to learn about, what your neighbors like to see happen in the area and what mechanisms are available to us as local government to make it happen. So I hope to see folks there if they're able to come. And we're also going to be doing some meetings online for folks that can't attend in person. So just reach out to me if you'd like to get involved in that work. It's been very exciting, and I'm looking forward to see what comes.
Thanks, Mariah. Patrick.
All righty. First, I would like to thank Girtz and Commissioner Edwards for visiting the Carney Lake Road residents. I encourage my other commissioners, constituents to do the same. It's quite extraordinary what's going on out there, and what you may be thinking may surprise you if you just take a visit. So if anybody want a cold beer, want lunch or dinner who hasn't visited that area, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to social distance and to take you out there and take a look with the residents. As the mayor said, early voting starting Monday from October 12th to October 30th, and the weekend voting is October 24th and the 25th. Of course, the election day is November 3rd. And Mayor, I like to look into if it's on the books, but to ban e-cigarettes and vapes within establishments. I think they're annoying, and Surgeon General has said they have some health consequences tied to them. So, for the betterment of our residents, we need to look into that. And also, just to do a follow-up on our pilot park program, I have some residents who are interested in some vacant lots and turning them into potential parks if they maintain them. And just to the residents of Athens-Clarke County and beyond, I do want to say, just because the season has changed does not mean the pandemic has changed. It is still alive. It is still out there. And this little thing that matches my outfit, because I know some people like fashion, it can save a life and it can save your life. And so please just continue to wear your mask. Please continue to social distance. Because the more we do this, the sooner we can get back to normalcy. That's the truth. So social distance, wear your mask, wash your hands frequently, and then we can get back to a normal lifestyle. The more you're ignorant, guess what? The longer this is going to affect our daily lives. And on the other side, I do want to thank, our police officers for doing a good job at, handling, being on the front line of this COVID crisis. I don't think they get enough credit for the work that they do downtown and around town and issuing, warnings and et cetera. So I want to thank the police officers for the work they do. But I also want to end with the fact that there's another side of COVID that people don't realize that affects many Americans, and that's the depression side. There are a lot of people who are losing their jobs, who lost a lot of family members, and mental illness is real. So just want to encourage my colleagues and the people who are listening to just tell someone out there who may be struggling, who may be in emotional distress, just to tell them that you love them. I had a good friend of mine 2 weeks ago to succumb to the world because it was just too much for him. So always remember that the sun will always shine, but there are people out there in our community who are going through some trying times. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. I'm sorry to hear that. Would anyone raise a motion to enter into executive session and to adjourn upon conclusion of that executive session?
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion from Commissioner Harrod and a second from Commissioner Davenport. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and we'll see you right back here for a couple of executive session items.